few weeks ago, I got in an argument with my printer, and it was one of those things, a blinking orange light going on and off, on and off. Don't know why it's happening. Nothing's going to print as long as this light keeps flashing at me. So, so eventually I got it working, but it was frustrating. It was just a series of activities engaging in troubleshooting and whatnot that I just didn't have the time for or really didn't feel like doing. And, I think we've all been there. Our flow gets interrupted, notifications come in, there's a lot of interruptions in our work process, and a lot of them are directly related to the technology we're trying to use to get our work done. And it starts small a lot of times. So little things build up. The application stops working and you have to restart it in order to get it functional again. You click a button, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. All of these things build up over time, and it can be draining. It can be truly draining. A lot of people call this techno stress, and there's a lot of guides out there online saying, how do you manage techno stress? What are the things you need to do to really manage that for yourself so that you're able to better navigate through these technology challenges. And what I think, it's really not about the screens we're looking at or about the interfaces we're using. It's about the fact that we've really lost control over the things we're doing with this technology. We don't truly understand it anymore. A lot of times you'll get advice that says, well, do a digital detox, unplug for a while. Well, that's great, and it's probably a really good idea if you can do it. However, it's not realistic for most people. Technology is integrated into every aspect of our lives. It's part of our livelihood. So just unplugging isn't really an option for most people. But once again, it's that loss of control. That's where a lot of the stress we're experiencing comes from. It's a lack of clarity in the interfaces we're using, a lack of a perception that somehow we're the ones that are incompetent. This is what happens when the tools that we're using actually become obstacles to our forward progress in trying to achieve what it is we're trying to achieve. The answer, it's not about escaping from technology. First of all, that's not realistic. And second of all, it's probably not a choice most of us would want to make because technology has a lot of advantages. We like the things it provides for us. We like the functionality that it gives us. We like the additional time that it saves for us to engage in other activities when it accomplishes that, but it doesn't always do it. So one of the problems is we have this black box problem. We kind of look at software, it's like some kind of magic trick. You press a button, something happens. You press the button, maybe that something doesn't happen. And this is where the problem comes in, is once that occurs, once that button doesn't do what we expect it to do, we don't feel like we have any recourse. There's nowhere to turn. It just doesn't work and we're stopped. Now our forward progress isn't going forward anymore. So an example of that, when I was building my website, Quiet Frontier, I started with some applications that kind of did it all for me. They made it easy. Here's how you do it. You just put the stuff in here, and it's all going to show up on the screen exactly as you want it to. And that's great. It's really wonderful. They're very easy tools to use. The problem comes in when they don't work. And there's no explanation. There's no idea as to how to proceed now that this tool doesn't work anymore. You can read through some instructions, which are often circular in nature. They kind of bring you right back to where you started. You could call customer service, and that's where you're going to go through the frustration of the upsell. well, buy this next product and that will enable you to have the functionality that you're looking for. Well, I don't want to keep spending money on increasing levels of support for something that should work in the first place. So this can lead to a significant loss of a sense of empowerment, and we just feel like we're stuck. So when we stop understanding the devices and the interfaces that we use every day, they really do start to control us. And to fix this, you don't need to become a computer scientist. You need to just pull the curtain back a little bit, enough to see the gears turning, see what's going on inside these interfaces. Anything you use, if it's a spreadsheet, if it's a presentation software, some sort of web interface that you use on a regular basis, take some time. Learn one thing, just one thing about the device, about the interface, whatever it is, and learn it well. Integrate it into your knowledge base. Take some time within these interfaces that we use. Learn how the various options that are available connect to each other so that you can see some kind of logical flow in how they progress so that you gain a little bit of a better understanding. Now, granted, that's not always going to even be possible because some of these interfaces are designed to keep functionality hidden. Or not necessarily functionality, they keep the overall workflow hidden underneath layers of abstraction that are just there. So it makes it a nice user experience when things work, but when they don't work, you don't have a lot of choices. So our initial reaction to this, oftentimes it's like, well, I must be the problem. I must just not understand this stuff. I don't have enough knowledge. I don't get it. And this is what leads to that situation where we experience what's called learned helplessness, where we just feel like we can't move forward. We don't feel empowered to take control of situations that actually we do have in our control. There's a term that's used frequently when discussing human technology interfaces. It's called uh, choice architecture. And what that term refers to, it's the settings in these interfaces and devices we use, they have a big impact on the choices that we actually make. And that even happens when we think we're acting autonomously. We're actually being influenced. And the less options we're provided, the more we're kind of funneled into a particular direction or a particular way of performing the tasks or the deeds that we're trying to perform. So what this really means, the problem is probably not you. You know, you're not inept, you're not incompetent. It's the limitations that are imposed on you by the available options provided in these devices and interfaces. So the problem, it's a system. It's not the person. So one of the things that can be helpful as well when you're trying to navigate through various tech devices and tech interfaces and they're not working correctly, you have to do some troubleshooting. And it can be a pain. Nobody really likes to troubleshoot, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary. And the first question you need to ask in those situations, what changed? What changed recently that could have caused a change in behavior in this application? Was there a new update done? That's frequently part of the problem. Was there a new setting applied? You know, did I go into the settings and make a change and then forget I did it? Maybe I'll go back and check that. Is it the device itself? Is there something malfunctioning in the device? Once you find that change, finding the solution usually follows pretty quickly after that. So what that helps you to do when you start taking this methodological approach to solving the problem, it takes you from panic mode anxiety mode into investigation mode. And that's a much better frame of reference for you to approach troubleshooting and trying to figure things out. A lot of times our default reaction when we see something not working right on the computer or on the interface, we just start to click harder. Let me press that button a little bit harder, or maybe with a little more frequency. The more I press it, the more likely it is to work. Well, no, that's not true. And I think we all know instinctively that's not true, but that is the default reaction. And we just get more and more frustrated as it continues to not work. One of the things that really is helpful in those situations, I'm not saying to walk away from technology and throw all your devices away. That's not realistic. But do walk away for 60 seconds or 120 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it takes. Step away for a while. Think about something else and let that solution start to stir around in your unconscious mind. And then when you come back, what was the last thing you did? Ask yourself, what was the last thing I did? Going back to that idea of what changed. Check out the obvious connections. Is everything hooked up right? Is there something unplugged? Look for those obvious things that something might be wrong. The idea is to approach this as a system. These aren't magic boxes. These are sets of instructions. And sets of instructions, particularly with technology, follow very logical sequences. So typically what's happening is there's something that has been resequenced in those instructions. And locating that requires you to take a very sequential approach to how you're solving the problem. That can be very difficult to do when we have frustration and other types of emotional escalation going on. So the idea is to reduce that level of frustration and also reduce the decision fatigue that we're facing all the time when we're working with these technological devices. So tech isn't magic. All it is a set of sequential instructions, and finding the solution is often very possible when you're able to follow a systematic approach to troubleshooting. It's not always possible. Some of the devices are developed in ways that really don't allow you to dig very deep into the troubleshooting process. Again, that's not a fault of yours. That's a fault of the system itself. It was built to be opaque. And when something's built to be opaque, there's a limited availability for you to fully understand it. Another thing you can do to help yourself overall with managing this techno stress that we all experience, get your files organized. It's amazing how helpful that is. When you go to look for something, you know where it is. I was terrible about doing this for a long, long time, and I can't say I'm still great at it, but I do try. I do try to keep the files organized, and I'm still going through some older files and trying to put them into some kind of coherent order. The more orderly they've become, the easier it's been for me to navigate through the things that I need to do on a daily basis as a part of my workflow. It reduces that stress, and that's incredibly helpful. Also, password management's another good one. It's amazing how many people use the same password for everything. I used to do it. I've stopped because it's dangerous. You don't really want to be doing that. So I've stopped doing it. A password manager is invaluable because you can set up solid passwords, long passwords with lots of different characters and various things involved, and you don't have to remember them. The password manager is going to do that for you, and you can then use the password manager to log into the various accounts and devices that you need, as opposed to trying to rely on your own memory. That reduces stress. So that's a huge thing. And another thing is the notifications we get. Every application wants to show you notifications about everything. They're distracting. And they also create a lot of stress, especially if you're somebody who has work applications integrated onto your personal devices, those work notifications will come up when you're not working. And they can be disruptive. They can take away your peace when you're trying to eat dinner with your family or spend a little bit of quality times with your loved ones. They that those things will just continue to drive you insane. They eat at your peace because you see the notification out of the corner of your eye, it pops up, and there it is, and you know it's there. You may not have read it yet, but you know it's there. And now your mind is split between the things that are part of your personal life and the things that are a part of your work life. And that can drain you so quickly. You want to get away from that. So take the notifications down. If you can, take those applications off your phone or your other devices, whatever it is you use, because it's not helping you. It might be helping your employer because you're responding every time you get a notification, but ultimately it's draining you. It's burning you out. And if you really feel like you need to check those notifications regularly or occasionally, or at least kind of know what's going on, set a time to do it. And then put that thing out of sight so that you're not receiving those notifications constantly. And then at that time of your choosing, not of their choosing, but of your choosing, get to that time, check the notifications, take care of what you need to take care of, and then go back to your life, because that's important. It's as important as your employer's uh, corporation or their startup or whatever it is they are attempting to build. Yeah, that's important, but it's no more important than you having joy and peace in your life. So what this comes down to, it really comes down to reducing our cognitive load, taking away the things that are just eating away at us, reducing the amount of things that are constantly flashing into our awareness and putting them in the background and bringing the things to the front that are important to us, our families, our loved ones, our hobbies, the things that really truly bring us joy. They deserve our focus. So putting these other things in the background is really important. It's about managing our attention, not just the applications and the devices and the interfaces. It's about managing our attention and how we focus, because that's critical in today's really fast-paced modern society. It's up to us to manage it, because if we don't, these devices will. So we need to be proactive rather, not be reactive. We have to stop reacting to the devices and be proactive and take control over our interactions with the devices. Technology is a tool. It should never become the master. So learn the basics. Learn the basics. Take back some power. Ask good questions. If something isn't working right and there's no way to understand it, ask some questions. And if you have the choice and these applications are so opaque that you can't gain a better understanding, find a better application, because that's not a good way to build things. It may provide a nice user experience, but it doesn't provide user understanding. And that's incredibly important. And build solid habits that support you, support your family, support your well-being, not the well-being of the tech companies, not the well-being of the corporations that utilize that technology, your well-being. Because no one else is going to prioritize that. Only you will. And that's critical. So the power's still in your hands. You just need to know where to look to start taking it back. Thanks very much for taking some time to watch this video and spend some time with me here. If these ideas resonate with you, and if you'd like to see more content similar to what I'm talking about here today, power empowerment and agency and self-regulation, feel free to check out the website at quietfrontier.com. I post a lot of writings and various videos there related to topics quite similar to this, so feel free to check it out. Thanks again for checking in today. Take good care.